What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Thursday afternoon. It's not morning anymore. We're bang on 12 as well. So I could have gone either or there, James. I could have gone either or. I decided to go afternoon. Be correct. But man, oh man, we've got so much to discuss today. Manchester United's interest in Leeds United's Calvin Phillips, the very latest on Erik ten Hag's impending arrival, contracts, announcement times. We've got it all covered. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I checked before we went live, James. We are 36 subscribers away from 99K. Yes, 36. Huge. So if we do it during this stream, I said this last night, if we do it during this stream, we take full credit, okay?
Oh, massive, yeah.
We are the full, true tap-in merchants. All the work has been done to get us to that finish line. We'll tap it in all day, every day. Yeah. Okay.
As Faz would say, we're the Harry Kane of the United View, like just tapping merchants.
Exactly. We're just tapping merchants. That's all we are. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Road to 100K continues. Super chats and super stickers are also available as always. Click the dollar sign. We'll get your comments up on the screen. As you can see, I'm joined this afternoon by James "The Rock" Dixon. I prepped
Not
that
today.
as well.
Not today, unfortunately. It's literally my vest is over there as well. I could have got it. Shame.
I feel like maybe The Rock is probably trademarked. We need to come up with something else. Yeah. We need to come up with a different nickname.
Like the Pebble.
We can think about that.
Yeah.
Pebble, James the Pebble Dixon.
Yeah, like smaller.
Or maybe it doesn't have to be in the middle. Maybe it could be before. Boulder, James Dixon. I like that one.
Yeah, we could do that.
There you go.
We could
put it on your Twitter bio.
Trademark it.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to be competing soon. You've got to have a nickname, right? You've got to have a nickname.
I do, mate. Just on that, I just want to shout out everyone in the United View community, to be honest, because I've had loads of messages from support and stuff like all the time when posting updates and stuff. And obviously when you're dieting, stuff's pretty tough. So yeah, that's really good. Cheers for all the messages. Keep them coming in and hopefully do you guys and everyone else proud on July 2nd.
Absolutely. We're firmly behind you, supporting you. It's your first time as well, isn't it? Is that the class? It's first timers as well. So, man, exciting. And challenging. I don't think people really understand. The diet is real, okay?
Yeah. The jawline is going to come in at some point and it's going to be like, oh, proper diet face.
Exactly. But right, let's talk about Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips has been linked to Manchester United. This is a big story from Samuel Luckhurst from the Manchester Evening News, who has said that Manchester United are working on a deal to sign Leeds United's Calvin Phillips. Erik ten Hag, I can't call him new manager yet, but he's going to be the new Manchester United manager, it would appear, would have a veto on any players that Manchester United have already shortlisted, but United are understood to be advancing on an intended deal to sign Calvin Phillips. Now, Calvin Phillips is aligned with Ralf Rangnick's preference for targeting hungry players seeking a progressive career move. Now, Phillips is also generating interest from the likes of Aston Villa and West Ham, but Manchester United are reportedly confident of seeing off any competitors. How do you feel about Calvin Phillips to Manchester United, James?
I like it, to be honest. I think he's a good player from what I've seen of him. I'm not going to say that I watch Leeds week in, week out, but from what I've seen and from what I saw of him in the Euros, when he played with Rice, he looked very good. So yeah, a positive. There's a lot of things in that statement that I liked, to be honest. I like the fact that if Ten Hag comes in, he would have a veto. I love that. I love the fact that it's a young, hungry player who's got something to prove and wants to improve. But I'm also very cautious about just throwing loads of money at the problem. We've also dealt with Leeds in the past and had relative success, as much as we hate them as a club, or I do anyway. You look at Erik Cantona, you look at Rio Ferdinand. We dealt with them last season with Dan James going the other way as well. So there's a lot of positives in the deal for me. And as long as, if it is Ten Hag that comes in, which we all are 99.9% sure it is, as long as he is the player that he wants, and if not, he can veto it, then only positives for me.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, the report says that Erik ten Hag would be able to veto any player that Manchester United offers him or says, look, we're in negotiations. I kind of sort of raise my eyebrow slightly at that because let's face it, if the deal is like there and Ten Hag, is he going to come and just go, no, get rid of it? Like, I don't know if he'll be able to do that. He might be in, when in the recruitment process now, they might be saying, look, we want to get Calvin Phillips, and he can maybe say yes or no, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting because the report then said that he aligns with Ralf Rangnick's vision of players we should be looking for a progressive move in their career. Now, Ralf Rangnick's reportedly a big backer of Ten Hag. whatever that means in terms of how much, his opinion actually weighs at Manchester United. But do you think and we're not Erik Ten Hag experts by any stretch of the imagination, but do you think that Calvin Phillips is a player that someone like Erik Ten Hag would be looking for? I mean, he's more of a possession style manager. Does Phillips fit into that, or is he just kind of more of the energy that we need in, say, a defensive midfielder position?
I think like both of those can be true. So just because you're a possession-based team doesn't mean that you have 11 wonderfully technically gifted players on the pitch. You might have one like classic destroyer that just their job is to win the ball back and distribute it to the more technically gifted players. So I think he could fit in a Ten Hag team. Listen, I'm not a Ten Hag expert, as many of us aren't. Like, I think a lot of people pretend to be, and they're like, oh, Ten Hag would want this player. Ten Hag would want this player won't fit his system. It's like, what, do you have him on speed dial? Do you have him on WhatsApp? Do you ask him? And it's like, or are you just going off FIFA or going off what someone else has said on social media? Like, I think it's sensible for us to approach players while the manager situation isn't sorted, just to kind of get an idea of who could potentially be interested. And like I said, as long as he's got a veto, I'm fine with it. Could he fit the system? Yeah, I think he could. I think he's physical. I think he's relatively technical as well. He disrupts the play. He's positionally very, very good. And we've got a lot of players in our team who positionally aren't very good. So that would help from a discipline point of view. And yeah, it's a signing that intrigues me, to be honest.
I must be said, I thought he was very impressive in the Euros last summer.
Yeah.
I really liked him in the Euros. I thought the energy that he brings, and I know people are sick of hearing energy and all that kind of stuff, but I do think he has an extra element to his game, because some of those games at the Euros, he absolutely bossed the midfield, and he does have the ability to go forward as opposed to just winning the ball back, but he also does have the ability to go forward as well. People are talking in the chat about injuries. Eagle Eye Football there says, is his injury record a concern? To be honest, he's barely played this season because of injuries. Does the injury part concern you? Because, we could be looking at a situation where we're forking out for a player. We don't know how much it would be, but we're forking out for a player, and then suddenly, he might not be playing many games for us.
Is it of concern? Yes. Would it stop me signing him? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's an injury. Like, it may be a little niggling recurring injury, but I don't think it's an injury that's like, like a Falcao leg break or something, like, or ACL tear that's going to, like, basically when we sign him, he's going to come back and bite you at some point. Well, there's injuries, physical injuries, and there's mental injuries, Owen. Like, writing sick notes for yourself when you're going away to Uruguay doesn't quite class as an ACL tear. But I think that Calvin Phillips, listen, he may have spent a lot of this season out of the team, which is probably why I got told that contract talks had stalled with Leeds for the second time this week. And that's why, obviously, United are literally just looking around it and seeing if he fits the profile to bring to the club, as he's looking like he's not going to extend at Leeds. But injury record wouldn't stop me signing him, no. I don't think he's another Cavani or Falcao or any other of those players that we've had in recent years.
I think also as well, it must be said that, he's been injured this season, but a lot of Leeds players have been injured this season. So this could be a club thing, right? Patrick Bamford has terrible luck of injuries this season. They've been missing so many big players. And look, the Bielsa style of playing, which they don't play anymore under Jesse Marsch, but still high intensity style playing. Yeah. It can just run you into the ground.
Well, I was to be honest, though, and I was going to say that, like, if you look at the amount of injuries like Liverpool had in Klopp's first season, like, they were done by like January and stuff. Like, if you all of a sudden go from, and we'll probably touch on this later on because there has been a few comments come out around like fitness and stuff recently. Yeah. If you go from a style that's not very physically intensive to all of a sudden you're running around chasing everywhere, high intensity, you are going to put more stress on your body and you are going to have more injuries. So it's not just a Calvin Phillips thing. Like you said, it's a Leeds United Marco Bielsa thing. And loads of people have suffered from that. And he's of the age where he can recover. I mentioned Falcao and Cavani, both at the tail end of their careers. Calvin Phillips isn't. So, no, it doesn't worry me at all.
It's funny because he's 26. So we're getting a player that's really entering their prime years. Yeah. And, that report said that Rangnick liked him because he was looking for sort of a player that was looking to progress in their career. We've heard pretty much all season, to be honest, that he, like you said, contract talks or possibly a falling out with Bielsa, or he was looking to move on elsewhere. In comparison to, say, a Declan Rice, he's definitely a cheaper option because there is no way that we're going to be spending 150 million for Calvin Phillips. If I'm clipped there, that is mental. If that actually happens.
Fair play.
Yeah. You never know. But I've seen the reaction to it rather on social media has been quite interesting, because some say it's actually a bit underwhelming when it comes to possibly bringing him in. But do we need to kind of change our expectations when it comes to the players that we're bringing in? We've tried before, right, to get these players that are like, prime of their career, but have played at big clubs before and they don't work, or to the tail end of their career, as you mentioned, that don't work. Whereas this is a player that somewhat is looking to ascend in his career. Do we need to kind of change our expectations of the players we're looking at?
I just think we need a mixture of people. Like, we need a mixture of experience, youth, proven players, unproven players. It's not just one type of person we need. We need to stop thinking that we're like the Harlem Globetrotters of Premier League football and we just sign all these superstars and we can make them work. I've mentioned time and time again, and Angel Di Maria, man of the match in the Champions League final, came to United, couldn't do a thing. Falcao, proven goal scorer. Ibrahimovic kind of worked out, I guess. But we've signed like top player after top player, and they haven't worked. And we've signed some youth prospects. Dan James, for example, didn't work out. So it's not like you go down one route and it's guaranteed to work. The one thing, and I know people label me passion merchant and you hate it and blah, 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 but I really want people that care. Faz posed a question on the Full View a couple of weeks ago. How many people are really proud to pull on that Manchester United shirt, that come to work every day saying, I want to make this club proud. Like, I want to work hard for this club. And we maybe name Fred. We maybe name McTominay. Marcel named Bruno, which I had a problem with. But I mean, there's not many at the club, though. Phil Jones, maybe.
The fact that we even have the conversation is the issue, isn't it?
That's the crazy thing. Like, the fact that, again, I get shot down for this all the time, but one of the biggest clubs in the world, we can only name, 3 or 4 players that really are proud to play for that club. And that's the thing that stings, especially like for me, who would kill to play for the club. Remember the Pinky discussion, Owen? Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. And you said no, right? Because, no, Pinky's essential for grip and all this kind of stuff. For guys that don't know, we basically said, would you give up your pinky, so your little finger, to play for Manchester United? Me, DJ, KG, Marcel, we were like, yeah, cut it off. Owen was like, but you couldn't grip, you couldn't do anything like that. Like, a lot of us would give it.
I play in goal. If I'm cutting off my finger to play in goal, that's an issue in itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Palm it away. Just palm it away.
Every time they're going in, they're going, that bloody finger he doesn't have. I'm telling you that would be it every single time. I'm telling you.
He just saved it. If he had that extra inch, he just saved it.
You don't know my technique. My technique's, I always go like that. I've always reached like Dr. Evil.
World class.
When it comes to the step up, now obviously he wants to step up. He's looking for that next move in his career. He's not going to get the step up at Leeds United. But we get this question a lot on social media as well. Is he able to step up? Can he step up? Can he make the jump from, say, a Leeds to a Manchester United if it were to happen, or anywhere of that matter? Isn't that the risk, though, when you sign that kind of player? Because I look at signings that other big clubs have made. I mean, like, you look at someone like Mane, right, at Liverpool, Van Dijk, even though it was a lot of money. And I'm not saying that Calvin Phillips is going to be to the same standard of them, but that's the risk, is it not, of going, can they make the step up? And that's the risk you have to take.
Well, isn't that the risk when we make this step up with this kind of manager as well? Like, with all due respect, Ajax aren't Manchester United, so it's a risk for that. But I don't hear many people on social media saying it's a massive risk for Ten Hag. So I don't see why people look at players and managers differently in that sense. And we've already said that signing superstars doesn't really work. So if you don't sign proven superstars, you're going to have to sign people that are a risk in some way, shape, or form, right? So, like, yes, it is a step up. Could he make the step up? We don't know until he makes it, right? Some people are big fish in small ponds. You look at people like Robbie Keane for Spurs, right? Unbelievable player. Tries to make the step up to Liverpool, couldn't make it. Like, other players have gone through that as well, that are big fish in a small pond. Calvin Phillips probably fits in that category at the moment. But he could come up and his career could blossom at Manchester United. We just don't know until it happens. So when people look at it really negatively, it's like, I just don't see that. It's like, why don't you just wait until it happens, see them pull on the shirt, support them, let them give everything, and literally, see what happens. Like, it's a risk. So what? We're in place when we need to take risks. Yeah.
It's like Jack Grealish at Man City. I mean, for me, that question still hasn't really been answered. No. Is he capable of making that step up? But no one, like you said at the time, was going, bad sign or whatever. Everyone was like, well, a lot of money, but, we'll see if he can make the step up. I feel like that's any player. Whenever you sign any player from and it happened with United so many times in the 90s, right? Buying players, or in the early 2000s, buying people from the Premier League teams. Are they capable of making the step up? If they were, they did well. If they didn't, they tended to be gone. And that's it. That's your career.
Like, who was the last player we signed that wasn't risk-free? I can't remember. Anyone in the chat?
Yeah.
Who was the last player we signed that wasn't risk-free? Like, I think there's a risk that comes with all players. I can't really think of one off the top of my head that's like, because even your established players that were older, like Ibrahimovic, like, and Ronaldo, it's still like, have they still got it kind of thing? Like, that still comes with a risk. And then your other ones that are in the Premier League, it's like, well, can they make the step up? Because they're obviously coming to a bigger club. And then the ones that aren't in the Premier League, like your Jadon Sancho's, is like, oh, well, can they do it in the Premier League? Like, they're not Premier League proven. So there's always going to be a question mark on every signing. You just have to trust in the process and trust that the manager vetoes or doesn't veto and gets the player he wants, and then support them. Simple.
This was quite interesting from James Ducker from The Telegraph when it comes to Manchester United's recruitment, which, of course, Calvin Phillips will fall into. He said that Manchester United are prioritising the recruitment of a striker, we've heard that before, and 2 accomplished high-energy midfielders, and will make their recommendations to the new manager. The right-sided forward area has also been scouted, but it is considered less of a pressing issue. Is that all of the positions we need? Do we need more than just 3 signings in the summer? What do you think about that?
We probably need more than that. But listen, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? And people that are expecting Ten Hag to come in and spend this mystical £200 million budget and solve every problem that we've got in the team are just crazy, right? Like, it's like we have the chat over and over again on the channel about De Gea and about like other positions. And it's like, realistically, if we've got £200 million, are you going to spend 40 million trying to replace De Gea at the moment? I would argue no. I don't think that's a pressing matter. Your fullbacks are relatively weak. The fact that we have the discussion about Wan-Bissaka or Dalot, Shaw or Telles shows that all 4 of them, none of them are pulling up trees, right? So they can easily be replaced. We've obviously got an issue at centre-back. We know that Varane is good enough when he's fit, but then who's your other one? Bailly isn't fit enough. Lindelof, is he good enough? Probably not if we want to play a high line under Ten Hag. We play De Gea, who doesn't sweep up. So there's an issue there at centre-back. Midfield, Jimmy Garner could come back and he looks good, but is he ready for the Premier League? We don't know. People have an issue. Yeah, it's a risk. People have an issue with McTominay and Fred. I have a bit of an issue with Bruno. Is he going to fit under Ten Hag? Rashford's form's dropped. Cavani's probably off. Ronaldo may not be around. We don't know. So there's probably 7 or 8 positions in that team that are up for grabs, but not all of them are going to get sorted this summer. So midfield is definitely a priority. I think everyone knows that. Striker, especially if Cavani goes and Rashford out of form, is definitely a priority. And then outside of that, it's another, I would settle for another 1 or 2 out of 4 or 5 positions. And then we just build from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we kind of have to manage our expectations when it comes to the transfer window in the summer. Obviously, there has to be business done. We can't have a transfer window like Mourinho's last one, where it's just Fred and Dalot. So that's not enough.
And Lee Grant, was it? Was Lee Grant in there as well? Yeah,
I forgot. I mean, I might as well be playing the fingerless goalkeeper. I might as well be playing. But we can't have something like that. But we do, even though we realistically need like 7 players. We're not going to buy 7 players in the summer.
Chance.
It's most likely going to be 3, 4, maybe at a push. That's probably the most realistic scenario. And whoever the manager is, it's not going to be done in 1 transfer window. It's not going to be done in 2. It's going to probably take 6 or 7, maybe. Right? It's going to take a really long time. Like you said, Rome wasn't built in a day. What I do find kind of crazy though is that last summer, we bought Jadon Sancho he was going to be our right-sided solution, which everyone kind of like, we're happy to get Sancho, but everyone was like, I'm not sure about the right-sided part of it. Isn't it crazy that, 12 months later, we're like, yeah, we need a right-sided winger again.
Yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, we signed Harry Maguire at centre-back for £80 million and Wan-Bissaka at right-back for £50 million. And they're 2 positions which we're arguably looking at replacing as well. So, I mean, we all know, and I bring it up all the time, but the Glazers are a huge problem at the club. But it's not the investment in the club, right? We spent £1.2 billion since Woodward was CEO in 2013. So it's not the fact that we don't invest in players. When you look at that £1.2 billion, you can probably say maybe 100 and something million of it has actually been a success. Like maybe 3 or 4 players have actually been a success. The rest of them haven't worked. You can reel off £700-800 million worth of players easily that haven't been a success. So yes, it is a worry that we're potentially looking at replacing a player that we spent £75 million, which a few years ago would have been our record transfer fee. But it's not the first time it's happened. Van der Beek, 35 million, couldn't get a game. Ahmad straight back out on loan. Wan-Bissaka, 50 million, not in the squad. Maguire, 80 million, should be dropped. Like, there's loads of money that we've
Palestri.
spent. Palestri, yeah, where's he? Exactly. Where is he? So I just think there's a lot of money that is spent. We seem to be really stingy and tight in some areas, like expanding the stadium and like fixing issues there. And then we seem to just throw money at contracts like, oh yeah, Sanchez, you can play the piano, here's 400 grand a week. Like, and it's just like, I just don't understand. Like, for a club that's basically got two accountants, well, the last CEO and this CEO, as accountants, we just tend to squander money like it's nobody's business.
Let's talk a little bit about Erik ten Hag. Of course, everyone was talking about him last night. The story broke last night. ESPN were first to break it, saying that he was basically going to become Manchester United's next manager. Since then, pretty much every outlet's kind of going in that direction. Man United are reportedly insisting nothing's been done yet, nothing's agreed, no contracts have been signed, but it's going in that direction. Ten Hag looks to be the guy. Now, from AD, which is an outlet based in the Netherlands, sources say within Ajax that there is no agreement yet between Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. A multi-year contract is ready for Ten Hag, but he's in no hurry to act. The Telegraph... Excuse me, gosh. Well, I tell you what, Ten Hag is just making me choke.
Taking your breath away.
Gosh. It says it's hoped that the announcement on Ten Hag will be made towards the end of next week, with Ten Hag now discussing details over a contract. So obviously you weren't on the show last night. So what's your initial reaction to all of this Ten Hag news?
Happy, not just with the managerial choice. Like, I wasn't really that fussed who it was, but happy that we're making steps into getting the situation sorted. I wanted it sorted sooner rather than later. So he could look at potential signings, so he can look at his number two, his backroom staff, so that basically we're not waiting until the summer. And then before you know it, we've not even started the summer with a manager or anything in place, and we don't get a full pre-season to work on things. So yeah, I'm just glad it's got sorted. I was watching, I think, Sky Sports News before, and they were discussing, obviously, Erik ten Hag, because it's the big news at the moment. And they said it was probably the easier option for Manchester United in terms of like fan opinion was that way. They also had like less than 2 million release clause. They were just saying basically all the reasons why it made sense that Ajax weren't going to stand in the way, whereas PSG might be a bit more awkward to deal with. Like, if you look at the history of Ajax as a club, when like players or managers want to move on, they kind of like allow it to happen. They understand that, not like a feeder club, but they get that people want to step up to bigger things, right? So yeah, I'm happy. I'm not quite on the Marcel bandwagon where I think he's fixing everything and you know, coming into the stream like Ten Hag, like that.
Oh, you missed it. You missed it. I jumped on before we went live, and he was first in there. Marcel was very prompt. Oh. And the first thing he said, like, because he wasn't in frame, he was away, and I was thinking, where's Marcel? And he jumped in. And went, Ten Hag, come on, Ten Hag.
Mate, honestly, like, so we meet up after the game, every single game, win, lose or draw, right? We meet up, and I see Marcel coming around the corner, and he just comes and he hugs me. And like, if we've won, it's like the most ecstatic hug in the world. But if we've lost, honestly, it's like a consolation hug, but he's still smiling. I'm like, I've never seen or met a more optimistic person in my life. And then Faz walks around the corner, and it's like this massive rain cloud just walking around the corner, and like a more realistic, should we say? It's just it's crazy. Like, so I'm not on his level of optimism, but I am happy about the appointment. Yeah.
Are you surprised how quickly it all gathered pace last night? I mean, I know when these things break, suddenly everyone just goes crazy, and that's kind of what happened last night. But you're surprised that, I mean, for the last couple of weeks, we've heard discussions, talks, interviews, but suddenly it just feels like it's really picked up in the last couple of days of just like, yeah, they've made their mind up. And maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it picked up a lot of pace, because United have finally made their decision, it looks like.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was hearing loads of stuff, but I just kind of thought it was just stuff put out to the media and just excuses, and United were dilly-dallying and weren't really getting anything done. But what's actually showed is they were working behind the scenes for however many number of weeks, and they were being proactive as a football club, which makes a change for us, to be honest, actually acting like a big club and acting like proactively. So yeah, it does surprise me. It kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously, I think Flex was saying yesterday on like the full view, half view, whatever you want to call it, whatever view it was, that basically, like he was saying that it had come out of nowhere, but people wanted to be the first to jump on it, right? So like Rob Dawson or whoever from ESPN, like they were the first to jump, and then Romano tweeted, and he was like, as per Rob or Mark Ogden or as per Rob Dawson. So it's like they were the first to jump, but then it has been picked up by bigger people. It's been picked up by Romano. It's now been picked up by Sky Sports today. It's been picked up by bigger outlets, which wouldn't happen if there wasn't something in it, right? So clearly, a lot of people's sources and a lot of people from within the club are putting that information out there. They're obviously not going to come out and confirm it. Ajax are in a title race until everything's signed, sealed, delivered. Man United aren't going to come out and say, like they may do with a signing of a player, like they may say, oh, a fee's been agreed, we're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. They're not going to say that with a manager that's in a title race of Ajax. Like you'd like to have more decorum and more respect than that, right? So this is how I would expect it to go. But at the same time, it is a bit out of the blue in terms of like timing of it. Yeah.
Faz is in the chat. He says, big up everyone. What's good, James and Owen? Top convo, lads. Exactly. I tell you what, you say Faz's name and he appears. He's like, he does. Juice.
Yeah, 3 times.
Exactly. Faz. Whoosh.
I know, yeah.
Rashford, I'm telling you now.
Mitrovic over Kane. Honestly, all day.
Exactly.
Faz.
But you kind of mentioned with the announcement, considering Ajax are in a title race. Now, again, the Telegraph is saying that an announcement could come next week. I mean, do you still buy into that one? Because again, like, I just think the last thing United wants to do is get into a situation where, Ten Hag's announced, and Ajax, of course, would give that blessing. But if they announced it and then who knows what could happen with their season, they completely fall off, they bottle the league, they bottle the cup. That relationship then with Ajax is a massive problem. So do you think an announcement next week is a bit premature?
Ooh, are you asking me as a football fan or a United fan? Because as a United
Both.
fan, I want it wrapped up, right? So as a United fan, I want the announcement next week. I want to know exactly who's coming in. I want to know that all signings are going to be ran by Ten Hag. And I want to know that he is organising his staff and he has everything in place ready for the summer. That's what I want to know as a Man United fan. As a football fan with a bit of sympathy for Ajax in a title race over there, I think it makes sense to wait a little bit. You can discuss stuff behind the scenes, but not really put it out there. So the selfish side of me says, announce Ten Hag now. The more pragmatic side of me, like the football fan in me, says, yeah, maybe wait a little bit, like have a bit of decorum, as I said before.
I mean, and also as well, I don't necessarily think it has to be announced. Everyone knows at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can just be a badly kept secret in the sense of, when he's asked in interviews, which he will be, when Ralph's asked tomorrow, which he will be, they'll just do the line of, well, it's a process, it's ongoing, all that kind of stuff, but everyone knows the situation. That's how I feel it'll probably go. But look, I mean, again, things happened really quickly yesterday, so who knows what can happen in a week's time. Red Baron says, I think we've been burnt so many times by the decisions by the board and the Glazers. I think the fan base are realistic to this manager signing, and we will give him time. I don't trust this board still. That kind of feeds in nicely to my next question, James. We spoke about this last night, and I'm interested to see what you think with this one. So previously, it was reported that Ten Hag, when he'd spoken to Murto and Fletcher, had said, look, it's a 5-year project, I think. And my question was, whilst I agree that it's a really long-term project and a long-term rebuild at United, do you think he gets 5 years? Does he get a 5? Because no United manager post-Fergie has got more than 3 and a bit. So we kind of wrapped this up last night when we were talking about it. But say, for instance, next season, he doesn't finish in the Champions League places. Does he even keep his job? And I'm not trying to sack a manager we haven't got yet, by the way. But 5-year project, does he get 5 years?
Knowing this fan base, I think it's pretty tough for him to get 5 years. But there's 2 sides to it, right? So I think if we were sitting here talking about Pochettino, I'd be like, no, if results don't go his way, there's no way he gets 5 years. But I've not seen this much support for a manager getting the job in the post-Fergie era. I mean, Solskjaer, after his run of 13 games, comes close because there was a lot of nostalgia and stuff and a lot of emotional connection to the player. So when they saw him win those 13 games and playing good football and scoring lots of goals, it was like, yeah, there was a lot of fan support behind wanting him. Social media is like 90% Ten Hag at the moment. Like people are really, really keen to get him
Very
in
much.
and really keen. Like it's almost like they've been sold a project and like, listen, he's good at building clubs. That's what he does. Ranić is also very good at building clubs. Let the two of them work. It will take time, but it's a match made in heaven and this will get us back to the top. So I think he will get time from that point of view. The problem, like you said, is no manager post Ferguson has had that time. And I'll be a bit controversial, but say that if Ferguson was manager in the social media era, we wouldn't have had Sir Alex Ferguson. He wouldn't be a Sir. He wouldn't be knighted. He wouldn't have had a 26-year dynasty. He'd have lost his job before that FA Cup game, which, I mean, newspapers were piling pressure on him, but not on the level that social media does. And then Robins obviously saved his job. But it's a very different game nowadays. If you don't get immediate success, then you're kind of struggling. Like I said, the fans gave Solskjaer a bit of time, but eventually the results got so bad that you couldn't justify it anymore, right? But in the first couple of seasons, there were some bad results, some good results, and he got a bit of time. I think we're going to see that, but on a bit bigger scale with Ten Hag. I think as long as we see some kind of progress, some signings that fit his style of football, his mould of what a club can be, as long as we see something, then I think he'll get a bit more time. I like the question when, because I saw it all over socials before, when Flex was proper baiting Faz, like really baited him. And then about like missing open goals and stuff and proper baited him and called him in. So Faz, if you're in the chat, love that, mate. But yeah, like we're obviously a new manager. If a player misses a chance and stuff, we're still going to go mad. But there's a difference between critiquing the players and saying the manager needs to go, right? And I don't think you're going to get any Erik Ten Hag out shouts in the first couple of seasons for sure. Seasons 3, 4, and 5, maybe you'll get some murmurs knowing how the fan base is, but he will get a lot of support. He deserves a lot of support, right? Anyone that pulls on that shirt for the club in terms of player, anyone that pulls on the suit in terms of a manager for the club gets my full support until it's physically impossible to support them anymore, until results determine, listen, there's no way out of this mess with you at the helm. So he's going to get my full support and he'll get the full support of a lot of people at the club as well.
I mean, it's a really interesting discussion point because KG was saying last night, he was like, look, if he finishes
He's
ninth
clipped
in the first
everything,
season,
honestly.
Oh, yeah,
he's
got
on
dossier.
it.
He's got a dossier ready. He was saying, yeah, if we finish ninth next season, we got to back the manager, and I'll back the manager. And I went, look, you can say that now, but that's very easy to say now. But if we are ninth at the end of next season, he won't be in the job because that's just like Manchester United just can't. They can't. And, you know, and that even at that point, it's almost like a financial decision, right? At that point, I think there might be a bit more leeway than maybe some other managers. For instance, if he were to finish, say, I don't know, 5th or 6th next season, but we were relatively close to that top 4, I think he'd probably get away with it. I don't think other managers haven't been able to. But I do think there is this kind of, this season's been an eye-opening experience of like, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And hopefully, look, he comes in and we see this radical change next season and we're, you know, comfortably back in the Champions League. But I think we also have to be realistic that's best case scenario, you know, but we have to kind of be aware for what might be sort of worst case and sort of in the middle kind of case scenario next season with him. Now, this was quite interesting. Marcel van der Kraan on Sky Sports, he's been everywhere. I tell you what, it's like when Solskjaer was in, all the Norwegian journalists get their moment, and now it's all the Dutch journalists. They love it. They love it. He was on Sky Sports News, and he was saying that Ten Hag wants 2 major guarantees at Manchester United. 1, a backroom staff that fits him in a total setup to change the club's philosophy and guarantees with freedom on his management and players. So for me, I heard that with music to my ears. I think everyone heard that and went, great. Backroom staff, total change on club philosophy, freedom on management and players. It's great to hear, but is that realistic when it comes to Manchester United?
Well, it would be a change. It would be a change for sure. Listen, I mean, the owners and the CEOs and stuff, they know that they've been a problem at this football club for a long time. It's whether they have the ability and the power to just let that go and basically like delegate certain areas of the club to other people, whether they accept that and that is the way out of it for them. And ultimately, if they care a lot about the finances and the value of the football club, the best way to increase the value of the football club of Manchester United is to get us being successful again and playing better football. And so they do need to let managers come in and let them, bring their own backroom staff and have control of decisions and do all that. From what we've seen in the past, post 2013, that's not really happened. And anytime the Glazers or Ed Woodward has been challenged on something, Ed Woodward and the Glazers have come out on top. There's stuff going around social media all the time, but we're hearing a lot about Mourinho, him saying like Pogba was a virus, Rashford wasn't good enough to be a striker, Martial needed to go, all these kind of things that basically we know is almost true now, or a lot of the fan base believe. Mourinho was saying at the time, and he got slated. And basically it was like, get rid of the players or get rid of the manager, and everyone sided with get rid of the manager, right? Because that was the easy thing for the Glazers to do rather than get rid of the players. Whereas now it's like Erik ten Hag comes in. I'd love him to bring his own backroom staff. I've heard numerous people linked. I'd love Rennie Mullenstein, to be honest. Like, I'd absolutely love Rennie Mullenstein. Like, basically, anyone that's Dutch and anyone that's had like kicked a football in their life has been linked.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get Cruyff linked. We'll get Jaap Stam linked. We'll get Ferdinand links, like, even though he's got no Dutch connection, but he's an ex-player. We'll get Butner. Yeah, we'll get Alex and Danny. Well, we'll get both Butners linked. And it's just crazy. Like, so he is like, we believe he's coming in right. The search for his number 2 has apparently begun, which means it does look like there is change afoot and they are letting him select some stuff. And listen, if they're allowing him to veto transfers and stuff, it, fingers crossed, looks like a change in the way that Manchester United is ran, and that's what needs to happen for the club to go forward. Ultimately, we know the club needs to be sold. I'm a big believer in that, and I'll do everything within my power to make sure that happens. But for the time being, the best we can hope for is that a manager comes in and they give him as much power and responsibility as possible, and fingers crossed that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds like a change, doesn't it? If he was to get that amount of power, that would be a significant change. I think it's quite interesting because just like a week ago, they're saying Ten Hag fits perfectly because he fits into the structure that United have, which basically the structure that United have is that Murto, Fletcher, they control, and Matt Judge, they control negotiations of contract transfers, and Ten Hag would coach the squad. And then suddenly you hear Ten Hag wants, more control. So who knows what to believe, honestly. But I do think it sounds good because you have Ralph a couple of weeks ago talked about why Klopp and Pep are so successful at City and Liverpool respectively is because they have a mission statement, a club ethos, and everything kind of surrounds Pep or Klopp's ethos at the club. And I think that's what Ten Hag is looking for there. It was also reported by the Telegraph today that Manchester United will make substantial funds available to Ten Hag this summer, even if the club miss out on Champions League football. We kind of touched on this before. Some crazy numbers have been thrown around, 200 million. They always get thrown around, and it's just nonsense. We kind of touched on this before, but would you rather we have this significant spend in the summer, 150 million or whatever, or would you be happy with, say, we only spend 80 million and we only get 2 players, but they are players that significantly improve the side, or do we need a bit more quantity, do you think?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on how many we lose. We need a squad of 25, first of all. So if we lose about 11, we're going to struggle.
Yeah.
I want to see quantity and quality come in over time, obviously. How much of that happens this summer, I don't know. I think people sometimes get lost in the fact that they think we play FIFA or Football Manager. They think that they load up the game at the start of the season and it's like, oh, Manchester United, your budget is £200 million this season. Your aim is top 4. Your this is this and this is this. I'm like, that's not necessarily how things work. You don't have a specific transfer budget. It's a rolling thing. Like, share prices go up and down. We might sell a few players. We might sign a new sponsorship deal. Funds may get released from elsewhere. Dividends may be taken out of the club like they are all the time. Like, we just don't know exactly what we're going to be able to spend. And would I be happy with like 80 million? I don't think 80 million pound improves our squad massively. However, if you sign it on, like, if you spend it on like a defensive midfielder and a mobile striker, then maybe that could have a big impact on the team. So listen, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I think we need a lot of players in the long term. I would prefer a summer of, if we could do something in the middle and spend about 140, 150 million on 3 or 4 players, recall a couple of people from loan, maybe get Van der Beek back, maybe get Ahmad back, give him some minutes, bring Jimmy Garner back, give him some minutes. And then before you know it, we've got a decent squad that can hopefully have a couple of runs in cup competitions. We may be in the Europa League, we may be out of Europe, we may be in the Champions League, who knows? And then just, let's see how the season goes, and then give Ten Hag 2-3 seasons to build a team, because let's be realistic, he's built a few teams at Ajax. I remember seeing the list of people that have been sold, like players that have been sold during his time there. And the fact that he looks like he probably will win the title this year with a team where he's lost, 15 plus top class players is very impressive. And Ranić's got a history of building clubs financially and, bringing good players to clubs as sporting director as well. So if the two of them are allowed to work together and we give them time over 2-3 seasons, then it'll be a quantity thing. But this summer, maybe 3 or 4 quality players would be a dream summer for me.
Ed T says Garner, Mengi, Hannibal, and Laird all need to be given a shot next season. That was going to be my next question. How many youth players do you think get brought in? Because as you mentioned, the outgoing is going to be huge, and whilst we would like to replace the majority of them, it's just, again, it's probably not going to happen. And we're talking about maybe like 11 people possibly leaving, right? So I think his hand might be slightly forced when it comes into bringing in some youth players. But how much do you expect to see when it comes to youth players being brought into the squad next year?
Well, that's the Ten Hag connection, right? I think a lot of people are linking him to bringing youth through. But if you think the youth are ready for first team appearances and going to get us like top 4 or challenging for Europe in the in the league, then I think that's probably mistaken a little bit. I watch a lot of our youth. There's some very, very good, talented players. I would have brought some of them into the squad already, not because I think they're ready for the first team, but I think like if you bring someone like Charlie McNeil into the squad, right, into the 25, and I really rate him as a striker. I think he's got fantastic attributes. You give him a season of learning from Cristiano Ronaldo, that's invaluable for someone like him. So you can bring him in, and then there's people that generally could contend for spots in the team, like your Jimmy Garner when he comes back, like your Garnacho at left back. Like Garnacho looks better than both our left backs at the moment. He looks phenomenal. Mabry had a really good African Cup of Nations, like Hannibal. He could come back in and he could compete, and at the very least start some cup games next season, like Carling Cup or whatever. So there are a few players there. I would say there's at least 3 or 4. Maybe you've got McNeil, you've got Mabry. Shoretire is a bit lightweight. Jimmy Garner can come back off loan. Garnacho, maybe Fernandez. There's a few there that could come into the squad. They're not the answer in the short term, but definitely they should be able to come into the squad, learn from a few of the senior players, get some time blossoming under Ten Hag, and let's see what the future holds for them.
I think also with McNeil, especially in a situation right now where you've got one striker.
It's crazy that he's not. It's crazy.
Because you look at, people can talk about, well, Rashford's kind of like the second to Ronaldo because Cavani's injured and all that kind of stuff, but Rashford's not a striker. And why wouldn't you just bring someone in, even if you don't think they're ready right now? Why wouldn't you just have someone at least on the bench who is a striker? So you never know what's going to happen.
Well, Rashford's clearly not a striker, because when Cavani and Ronaldo are out, we choose to play 2 number 8s up front instead of Rashford.
Exactly.
So it's like Rashford clearly isn't seen as a striker by Ralph. So we need a striker, even as an option on the bench. Like say Ronaldo's played 70 minutes and is knackered. And we're 1-0 or something. We need someone to do a bit of running and someone to take a chance on the break. Charlotte McNeil's perfect for that. Like he's an absolute bagsman. He scores goals across his young career. Technically, he's very good. I like him. I think he should be in the squad, no doubt.
And also as well, with any kind of youth player, most youth players' careers start in the first team just by sort of fortuitous luck, right? It just happens to be there's so many injuries, or someone's not available, or they were named on the bench, they were never going to play, but then someone got injured and they had to come in. Like
Marcus Rashford,
that's how
right?
It works. Yeah,
Marcus
exactly.
Rashford. Anthony Martial got injured in the warm-up against Midtjylland. Rashford came on, scored 2 goals. Next game against Arsenal, he gets a start, scores 2 goals. And then the rest is history in terms of what he made of his career so far from there, right? So he took his shit. He wasn't even in the thought for that game, really. He was just named on the bench as a youth player, because you had to name 9 subs or whatever it was in the Europa League.
Yeah, and we had injuries.
Exactly. And that's how he made his way into the United team, into the England team. And the rest is history for Rashford. And he's set up for life because of an injury to Martial, basically.
Exactly, exactly. This was quite curious too. So again, this comes from the Telegraph that Manchester United are moving closer to appointing a new deputy football director. The process is down to the final three candidates. United are hoping to make an appointment within the next fortnight. Do you look at that and think that that's good news, good structure, more change at United? Or some people are saying, oh, it's just more layers of bureaucracy at Manchester United. What do you think about that?
Well, it is more layers of bureaucracy at Manchester United, but I don't really know enough about the football club to know whether that's a good or bad thing. Like, I think some people pretend like they run a football club in day-to-day
Yeah.
life, and they know exactly like how to run a football club. It's like I've got no idea how to run Manchester United Football Club. If the people in
It's
charge
big.
think, yeah, it's huge. Like you've got no idea the scale of the club. Like people that think they have an idea, you don't. It's colossal. When I say it's the biggest club in the world, you have no idea about the infrastructure around that place. I know so many people that work there. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. So one more person coming in, does it harm it? I realistically, I don't know. Like, would they work under Murta? Would they work alongside? Would they work like? I don't really know what their job role would be. So I don't know whether it's a positive thing. There's people in. I mean, these roles are kind of all new, right? When I was growing up in the 90s watching football, it was basically you had a manager, you had a CEO, and you maybe had an owner, and you
Yeah.
didn't really hear much else about anything else. Now you've got a footballing director, you've got a technical director, you've got a sporting director, you've got an assistant director, you've got a CFO, you've got a CEO, you've got all these different roles, right? But that's businesses in 2022. Like it's different to businesses in 1990. Like things
Yeah.
are gone over with a fine tooth comb. Like everything's analysed, and if they decide that bringing this person in is going to be best for the club, then hopefully it is. But I don't pretend to know or have all the answers because let's face it, I don't. Like, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you look at even the story of how, say, like Erik Cantona was signed for Manchester United.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a phone call between chairmen of
Wilkinson,
Leeds and Man
yeah,
United. And they literally go like, can we buy Dennis Irwin? No.
no,
Oh, and by the way,
we've
is
got Erik.
Cantona available? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll sign Cantona. That's how it was done. It wasn't like grand scouting. It wasn't like you said, all of these directors or dossiers. It was that's how it was. And I think I think it is a positive in the sense of literally like even the director of football position at Manchester United didn't exist 18 months ago.
Yeah.
They're new, and I think they kind of have sort of realized how big that role is. I would look at it as, and again, I'm not an expert on this, this kind of the org chart of Manchester United at all, but that would be a role I would look at and say, because there's been a lot of scrutiny on Darren Fletcher, hasn't it? Like, is he right for the technical director role? Does he have the experience for the technical director role? A deputy football director role is the role that I would think he's best suited in because that's working under someone, that's learning from someone. And then you would hope maybe you move, say, Ralph Rangnick into the technical director role. If that's in an ideal world and, baselining it of my sort of understanding of it. Lots of people have been saying, Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell's going to come in and be the deputy football director. To me, I mean, I'll ask your opinion in a second, but to me, that kind of seems somewhat, and I might be wrong, but it seems somewhat farcical because this is a guy that's been like director of football at big clubs like Tottenham, Southampton, Monaco, Leipzig.
Yeah.
For him to come in as a deputy under John Murtough just kind of seems a bit odd, does it not?
It would seem strange, yeah. As soon as I saw that Paul Mitchell had left Monaco, I was like, well, it makes sense for him to come here, right? The links with Rangnick, or Poch at the time, like he had links with both, right? Whether it was Leipzig or Southampton. So I thought that was making sense for him to come, but not in this role that you just mentioned, because being a deputy when he's come from like leading clubs and building up clubs and stuff is strange. So that wouldn't really work out for me.
No, it really wouldn't for me. But I suppose it kind of goes into the conversation about Richard Arnold, because we spoke about before when it comes to Ten Hag asking for, to an entire backroom staff and more authority. Do you think that Richard Arnold would give that to him? Do you think these new structures being put in place by the likes of Richard Arnold are a good thing? Because in the Ed Woodward era, that certainly wouldn't have happened, right? He was the be-all and end-all. He thought he knew better than everyone else, all that kind of stuff. Is it a positive that we're seeing these positions made and actual discussions about managers getting control under Richard Arnold, or are you still skeptical?
No, I think it's a positive. I do think it's a positive. I think football fans are always going to be skeptical. They're always going to think like Arnold is Woodward's best mate. It's another accountant in charge of the club. It's another, and I hate this term being thrown around, but it's another like non-footballing person in a footballing role or whatever. Like
Right.
they like people label that like Darren Fletcher all the time. It's like Darren Fletcher probably knows more about football than John 3624 off Twitter. Like Darren
Yeah.
Fletcher's played it. He's
With
played
the
at
egg
that,
emoji.
yeah. He's played at the highest level. Like I'm pretty sure he knows quite a bit about football. Whether he should be a technical director of the football club is a different story, but I'm pretty sure he's a footballing man. John Murtagh is a footballing man. He's been around football for a long time. He knows what he's doing around the club. So yeah, sorry, forgot the question. Beat around the bush. Went off on a tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, I forgot about it as well. Oh, yeah,
My
that was
bad.
it. Richard Arnold.
Richard Arnold.
Yeah. Do you think that, again, that's a positive? Do you think that, because we've heard that report as well, like he's more willing to delegate. He openly admits, I'm not the expert on all of these situations. That has to be a positive, does it not?
It's a massive positive. In everyday life, I love it when people say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that. Let me find out, or I'll point you in the direction of someone that does. What I don't like is me asking a question to someone that blatantly doesn't know the answer and they just give a BS answer, right? I hate that. It's like my biggest pet peeve. Apparently I heard that Richard Arnold was one of the people that obviously wanted Ten Hag, along with one of the owners as well, like along with Joel Glazer. Like they gave their approval to Ten Hag. That's what I heard. So if that's the case, then that's a big positive, because that never would have happened under Ed Woodward. Ed Woodward was all about me, apparently. He was the one signing the checks. He was the one, saying to Van Gaal and Jose, you can get your third choice striker, you can get your fourth choice midfielder. I've got your list. You can't get any of those top five. He was the one playing Santa Claus. No, you're on the naughty list. You can't have this. You can't have this.
Yeah.
He was basically playing God at that football club. So if Arnold has come in, people were expecting, the skeptics were expecting nothing to change. But it looks like, and I reiterate the fact, looks like things are changing, and change is only a positive for Manchester United, because a lot needed to change at this football club, and delegating power to people that know how to use it better is a major positive for the football club.
I agree. I think the best managers, just in everyday life, not necessarily football, but the best managers know how to delegate. When they don't know, they go, okay, I'll find someone that does know. Handsome with the super sticker, appreciate the contribution. Be sure to smash a like on the like button as well, guys. Got over 500 people watching, and be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, as we tap in to 99k. We'll take the credit if we get there. But to wrap things up briefly, then, so obviously there's a bit of it's a bit of a weird situation. There's a bit of optimism on social media when it comes to Ten Hag, but there is still, with all of this going on, there is still a season in play here. And I've seen some people. Wow. If you ask Marcel, he will absolutely say there is. Okay, let's not even get into that. But obviously, yeah, game at the weekend and still games to go. Look, Arsenal lost. I'm not even going to try and sell you on if top four is possible. Marcel did his job on it the other day. But do you expect to see any form of a reaction from the United players in the coming weeks at the weekend, or are we going to see more of the same?
I mean, Marcel could sell ice to Eskimos, mate. That man believes to the very end, honestly. Are we going to see a reaction? I've stopped trying to predict stuff like this, because every time I expect a reaction, I don't get one, right? Like I said, like before the Manchester derby, we just played Leeds at Ellen Road. It was 4-2, like good win, battling conditions away at a tough rival. And like we showed fight and grit and determination. And I was really excited for the Manchester derby. And then like it was such a flat performance and we offered nothing. And like, again, before the Atletico game, like I was buzzing. We beat Tottenham. We were all happy. And then it's like, went to Atletico, didn't do anything. And like, so it's just so hard to predict anything. Like on the face of it, all this news should be, oh, there's a new manager coming in. It's this person. I don't know if I'm going to get in the team. I better book my ideas up because he's going to be watching from now. So I need to put a performance in to try and impress my new boss. Because that's the problem with like the term interim manager. I've always got an issue with it, to be honest. It should have been Ralph Rangnick is coming in as the new coach. As soon as you label someone interim manager, like if you had someone at work and you were like, oh, by the way, this is Dave. He's going to manage you for the next 6 months. But then someone else is going to be coming in. Are you going to try your hardest to impress Dave, knowing that he's gone in 6 months? He's not going to be the one signing off on your promotion. He's not going to be the one signing off on your pay rise. So really, are you going to be that bothered to impress an interim? Maybe not. So I have a problem with that whole premise in the first place. But knowing that Ten Hag is the man that's going to be coming in now, they should be wanting to impress him. But then again, I said at the time on the fan cam last week, Bruno should be wanting to impress after his new contract. And when you shirk a 50-50 and give away a goal, that's not impressive to me, mate. So what do these players have it to give and to show and to get a reaction? I don't know. Are Everton going to be prime Barcelona? I don't know. Like, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? They played last night and they were awful.
Oh.
They were terrible, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, usually that would be like, okay, we're going up against an Everton that are really out of form. They're playing badly, but we don't know. And it's not, and that's not just because of in football you never know. That's because you really don't know of Manchester United. Manchester United. You have no idea what is going to happen. And they might have to. I mean, Everton have to react because they're in massive trouble now.
Yeah.
Massive trouble.
Yeah, huge trouble.
They're going to be fighting, but it should be a game that United are like, right, they are ripe for the pick, and we rip them apart, make a statement, push to the end of the season. But it just doesn't work like that with Manchester United at the moment, unfortunately. Red Baron says, surprised no leaks have come out yet with Ten Hag. Well, when it comes to him actually taking the job, I mean, less of a leak, more of a sort of, I don't know,
waterfall.
Because it's I mean, like it's out there. I think when it comes to the players, we've kind of heard that a little bit of, you know, and we'll touch on this, but actually briefly before we wrap it up, that report that was out there, I think it was earlier on in the week, when it said that some of the United players found the possible Ten Hag thing as underwhelming. What did you think about that?
I think some of their performances have been underwhelming, to say the least, mate. At the end of the day, like, I just don't. Any player that wants to be negative about the appointment of a new manager can get out, as far as I'm concerned. I'm a big believer in playing for the shirt, playing for the badge. Like, at the end of the day, if you're not fully behind this appointment, then please leave Manchester United Football Club, because I've got no time for you at all. I want you to listen to the manager. I want you to buy into his philosophy. I want you to give everything every time you're on the pitch. I want you to listen to tactical instruction. I don't want you to leak anything to any of your friends, to any of the media, to anyone. I just want you to play football and give your all every time you're on the pitch, and get behind the manager and get behind the project. If it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, I'm sick of being so far behind City and Liverpool, when realistically neither of them were a factor when I was growing up. And now the tables have turned completely. And a lot of that is on the players. And I feel sorry for Ralph, actually, because I actually think he's done an all right job. And he was almost given an impossible job as soon as he's given the title of interim. He did do an all right job in terms of, like, he tried to get them playing a different way. He's called out the players' BS. He's basically said, you know, he's dropped people that we thought were undroppable. He dropped Maguire at one point. He dropped Rashford. He dropped Bruno for the game in Valencia, in Villarreal. Like, he's dropped a few players that we thought were undroppable. He's called out BS in the media. He's given, like, technical and tactical instruction. His press conferences have been very good, very detailed. And so actually, he's done a lot for the football club. It's just that it's hard to see through all the smoke sometimes. But yeah, it's just a big job coming up. But any players that aren't behind Ten Hag, if Ten Hag, like, we're speaking like it's done, I guess it is. But, like, players that aren't behind Ten Hag, then you know where the door is, mate. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I think concerns me about it, because, I mean, we have seen this story so many times over the last few years of the players aren't sure about training. They don't like the new philosophy. They can't adapt. I mean, I said it on the Full View at the weekend that how we're playing at the moment is not Ralph Rangnick's vision for football. I think he's literally just doing, you know, patchwork on. He wanted to have this high pressing 4-2-2. Tried it for a couple of weeks, and the players sort of shook their heads and went, "No, we're not doing it." And then he sort of went, "Well, you know, I'm not, like you said, I'm not in the position to be like, all right, then leave," because he can't do that. So he was just kind of like, well, I've just got to do what I can then. I'm going to try and do the best with what I've got. So that's my only concern with Ten Hag coming in, is that he's got a philosophy, and it is a bit of a radical overhaul of philosophy at Manchester United. And there are going to be players that are going to be kicking and screaming. They're not going to like it. And they might be like, oh, well, I don't know if I can, I'm not sure if I'm fancying this. And I think that's the key when Ten Hag needs a bit of control, because he needs to have the ability to say, well, if you don't like it, then leave. You know?
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that that's where that comes from, because if we get into a situation again where it becomes players versus manager and the board has to make a decision, we've kind of seen what decision they're going to make. Whether a case of they learn from their past mistakes, we'll have to wait and see. But that's the risk. That's the risk in all of this, right?
That's the risk. That's why we love it. That's the risk.
Exactly. Well, anyway, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, on the road to 100K, on the road to 99K. I don't even know what we're at the moment. I would look, but I can't be bothered, to be honest. So
very close.
We're very close. We'll look
very
later
close.
on. I think Flex is going to be back this evening with something special, hopefully in the works. So a bit of a tease there. I don't even know if that's actually happening. So I may have just lied.
Yeah,
I may have just told a porky straight at the end of the stream, but Flex will be here later on this evening. That I can confirm. But anyway, guys, look, we're out of here. Have a good one, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.